Hey, good evening, Billings voters. Thanks for hopping on with me tonight on our digital town hall. Ballots dropped out in the mail today, so you will be seeing them in your mailbox on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So this is a great time for me to just spend a little time with you tonight and answer your questions about the upcoming mayoral elections here in Billings. My name is Jennifer Owen. I'm running for mayor because I believe in the potential of our community. I've been so privileged to serve for the last 4 years on City Council representing the Heights. We've got some good work done, but there's a lot more to do. I think Billings is a city in transition. We are making a move from being a large town into a small city, and this is the time for bold leadership, for a clear vision, for us to deliver on the promise of Billings. I'm so glad that you're interested enough in these municipal elections to hop on tonight and have a conversation with me. If you haven't already, drop some questions in the chat. We've got a few queued up already, but that's really the point of the next hour. I want to hear from you. I want to know the things that are on your mind, and I want to share my perspective so that as you're casting votes in this election, this incredibly important municipal election, that you have the information you need to make a good and informed decision. If at any point you want to know more about the campaign, you can check out our website at votejenniferowen.com. But for the meanwhile, drop your questions in the chat, and I'm going to begin tonight with some of the most frequently asked questions that I've gotten on social media, on the campaign trail, and when I'm talking to voters around the community. Hands down, the number one question I hear from voters is something to do with partisan affiliation. People want to know what city council and mayor candidates stand for, and some people are concerned about whether or not these truly are nonpartisan races. So I just want to kick off tonight by addressing that very clearly. When we register in municipal elections for mayor or for city council, we are required to register as nonpartisan. That means that we don't declare ourselves to have a party affiliation, and at no point could any of us say that I'm the Democratic candidate for mayor or the Republican candidate for mayor. That said, these are politics, and everybody brings to the table a certain political philosophy of governing. And so it's important to me to always be transparent with you, to tell you how I would approach issues, which is why I tell people that I'm a conservative. I generally believe in less government, lower taxes, and less regulation. I like bringing people together to solve real problems and to get to work. That doesn't mean the government leads, but it does mean that as mayor, I want to be a convener and a facilitator of real problem solving, public and private sector working together. I generally prefer more liberty and more free markets when I'm making decisions. At the same time, and particularly here in local government, there is a critical role for the services that we provide. Local government is here to make Billings a safe community, to invest in our roads, our water, our sewer, our basic infrastructure, so that you can have homes and businesses that are thriving and safe. We have a critical role, and it's important that we do that at the highest level of excellence, delivering for you a real return on investment and building the kind of community that you want to live in. It's why, frankly, I love local government, because these are the decisions that we make together. We're neighbors, building the kind of community that we want here in Billings. And this is the government where you can be most effective. So it's true that we all are expected to file as nonpartisan candidates, but I also know that people want to understand where we're coming from, and that's my political philosophy. It's generally less taxes, generally less government. If you have more questions, drop those in the chat and I'm happy to clarify. But that is absolutely the number one question when I get out on the doors and talk to voters. The next most common question is, does the position of mayor in Billings even matter? We sort of refer to the position of mayor as a weak mayor system. And what that means is that we have a hired city administrator who oversees the day-to-day operations and directly manages the 1,000 employees that comprise Billings city government. But I will tell you that the role of mayor absolutely matters. The role of city council absolutely matters. Under our charter, which is our local form of government, our local constitution, it's very clear that council and mayor have two fundamental roles: setting the policy direction of city government and approving and adopting the annual budget. We, as our city grows, we're reaching nearly $500 million in annual spending across all of the services that we provide to make this community vibrant. And so when you talk about making decisions, aligning $500 million of your tax dollars with clear goals and clear priorities, that's a very critical role. Sometimes people don't realize this, but the mayor votes on every issue that's in front of city council. And the mayor has an opportunity to build coalitions, to set out a vision and mobilize people behind it, whether that's the other 10 council members, or you as a voter coming to be a part of the decisions that we make. But I believe that Billings absolutely needs a mayor with a vision, a mayor who is out in the community talking to you, listening to the issues that matter most to you. We do have a critical role. It's one of leadership, it's one of vision, and it's one of ensuring that your tax dollars are being stewarded to solve real problems. And not surprisingly, the next most common question that I get is, what are we going to do about these water bills? People sure are frustrated, and I am too. It has been a long and difficult process as people continue to have current concerns and questions about what happened with our utility bill conversion. I want to begin by clearing some things up in the community. When we discovered the challenges with water billing, I was among that group of council members that requested an independent third-party audit of the software conversion process. There was some misreporting in the media, quite frankly, that led to a lot of heartburn. It is not true that the audit said there wasn't any problems. That independent third-party audit showed that in fact there were thousands of errors in billing. And as a city, we issued thousands of refunds. But as we sit here today, there are still many people across the city of Billings who are very concerned that we haven't fixed the problems and that their water bills might not still be accurate. If you're a part of those people, if you feel like you're being billed for water that you didn't consume, please, please, please call the water department and have them take a look at your bill and walk through it with you. But I know that for many people that isn't enough, and quite frankly, I'm frustrated with where we stand too. What the audit truly showed, and the most important thing for us going forward, is that we had some problems with internal project management. We didn't have the right team at the table making decisions for a software conversion, and we didn't have enough internal monitoring and oversight. And frankly, council didn't pay much attention to the process at all. So I brought an initiative to change the way that we do internal transparency and reporting, ensuring that we have more accountability and oversight when we undertake major projects of significant community concern. I will tell you that that initiative is met with quite a bit of pushback, but I'm going to keep working because I think it's really important that when we do major technology conversions or undertake large construction projects, or frankly, when we do anything that significantly impacts the community, we do much more to ensure that we are paying attention internally, monitoring and reporting, and being good stewards of your tax dollars. So I know people are frustrated. We still have work to do. That's why when we had a proposal this year to raise water rates, I voted against it. And I also voted against the recommendation to begin imposing late fees and water shutoffs. I lost that vote, unfortunately, but I understand that people are concerned. And I want you to know that as mayor, we're going to keep working to clean up the way that we monitor things internally and ensure that we're being good stewards of tax dollars. I see we have a question here coming online with asking about whether or not we pay a recycling company to take the cardboard the city collects. Yes, we do. As many of you know, the recycling markets generally aren't great. So there's a little bit of cost sharing in our contract. We started asking the people of Billings to consider collecting their cardboard and having it hauled off to a recycling company because we're really watching our landfill space. Expanding a new cell for the landfill is a significant cost to the city. We will have to do it. We are nearing the end of the life cycles of some of our landfill cells right now. But the reality is cardboard is one of the largest waste streams that we have. And if we can begin pulling even some of it out, we extend the overall life of the landfill that we have, the cells that are open now. So we've asked the people if they'll join us in doing a little bit of recycling. And truthfully, it's been hit or miss. We have been working to remind people all across the community when their cardboard collection date is. If you're not signed up for the Everbridge community notification service, you should do that tonight. It's available on the Yellowstone County website, yellowstonecountymt.gov. Go to Everbridge and sign up for those notifications. Those are going to give you notifications on storms, issues in the area, but you'll also get public works notification. And that includes when garbage collection dates have changed and when your cardboard collection date has changed. Because we have a staggered schedule for collecting cardboard, people often forget. But if you're on that Everbridge system that the county offers for disaster notifications, you're also going to get those public works notifications that remind you when the cardboard is happening. So as we try to manage that landfill as effectively as possible, as we try to extend the life cycle of the cells we have now and plan for what our next expansion will be, having that cardboard contract is one way that we're able to be a little bit more responsible with the tax dollars. And then there was a follow-up question asking about why driver's licenses are being scanned, why we're checking. The city of Billings has a tiered rate schedule at the landfill. We want residents to receive the lowest cost for going to the landfill, people who are in the county to pay slightly more, and people who are hauling from outside of the county or even outside of the state to really bear the burden, because those folks aren't taxpayers here inside the city of Billings. So it's not fair for people who are not paying taxes into our public waste system to come in and pay the same rate as you as a local do. So we have those mechanisms in place to check who's hauling locally and who's hauling from out of the areas and assign fees appropriately. That prevents you from subsidizing people from out of state. And the truth of the matter is, for many of our neighbors, running a landfill is too expensive. They choose to haul to the Billings landfill, and we need to make sure that we're allocating costs appropriately. I know it's caused some congestion, it's caused some lines from time to time, and that's frustrating. But please know that it's in service of making sure that people are paying their fair share and that you aren't inevitably subsidizing someone from outside of the community. So the next question that I hear often that I want to visit with a little bit tonight is this really complicated one of public safety. If you're listening to any of the mayoral candidates, you know that we are all talking about public safety as a critical priority. It's been a priority for me for the last 4 years that I've served on city council, and it's something that we need to continue working on going forward. If elected as mayor, it's really important to me to bring some of the public policy leadership to bear that hasn't always been in place. You as taxpayers, you've done a great job of giving us additional resources for police officers, firefighters, prosecutors, code enforcement, all of the personnel. We're really grateful that the taxpayers have invested in the frontline people who are doing the hard work of keeping this community safe. But now it's time for us as elected officials to step up and start addressing some of the structural and systemic issues that slow our criminal justice system down. We know that the Yellowstone County Commissioners will be coming to you over the next few months and beginning a conversation about expanding space at the Yellowstone County Detention Facility. That's going to be a pretty serious conversation with a pretty big price tag attached. But I want you to know that I've been lucky for the last 2 years to sit as a part of the committee, analyzing the proposals that will come before the community. And the ones that are being recommended, they depend on the criminal justice system becoming much more efficient. We are not going to go to the community with a arrest our way out of the solution or build beds and then worry about them filling up. We know our courts have to move cases through faster. We have to get cases to trial faster. People who are at Yellowstone County Detention Facility, they're there waiting trial, or they're there waiting transport into the Department of Corrections. So the whole system has to work better in order for any jail expansion to make sense. We've made some of those improvements, but there's a way to go. This is an example of the type of policy leadership that elected officials need to be doing so that our frontline safety workers are able to do their jobs better. I had a question about the small size of the police force and what we could do about it. We absolutely need more police officers. The challenge that we're facing right now is complicated. We have about 15 vacancies for police officers. So if you've thought about a career in public safety, this is your time. Go on the Billings Police website and find out about your opportunities to become a community service officer or to pursue a career as a sworn officer, because we have vacancies. And keeping people hired, retaining our employees, it's a real challenge. And you can understand why. With Yellowstone County Detention Facility as crowded as it is, officers are frustrated. They can't always arrest people. They give notices to appear, and the criminals laugh at them. They tear up the warrants and they throw them back in their face. That's really hard on morale, and it's hard to retain officers who just want to do their job of putting bad guys away. I am so grateful for the sworn officers that we have now who are fighting every day to keep this community safe without, quite frankly, the infrastructure they need to do their jobs. One of the issues I've worked on over the last couple of years that I'm really proud of is partnering with the county to build what we call a short-term pre-arraignment facility. Right now, we need our officers to be able to arrest people and hold them accountable the first time they see them. And so even with a crowded jail, we can begin to hold people overnight, get them in the system, get them processed, maybe even get their cases resolved at initial appearance. We want to focus on some of those misdemeanors, those low-level quality of life offenses before they escalate into serious violent crimes or felonies. In just a few days, we will open this short-term holding facility that represents a real partnership between the city and county to make the criminal justice system work better. We will expand the beds just to hold people until their initial appearance, but it will give our officers the ability to arrest. How did we do it? We took some of the resources we had and allocated them to the community's highest priority. So people often ask, what is the city doing with those marijuana tax dollars? That's what we did with them. We sent our portion back to the county and said, let's work on a facility that begins to bring some efficiency to the criminal justice system, some accountability back to our community, and gives our officers the ability to at least arrest people. This is one of many things that we need to be tackling as elected officials, and it's part of the reason why we struggle to hire and retain police officers. So while I do think overall we will need more officers as our community grows, right now we can't fill the positions we have, and it's difficult to retain people when they're feeling frustrated, when they're feeling like the city isn't giving them the tools that they need. I'm also really excited about an ongoing conversation that we've been having with School District 2 to develop a public safety career technical education program in our high schools. Let's hold up the profession of law enforcement as an honorable and dignified one in our community and encourage kids to consider it as they plan for their future in our high school system. We have the opportunity for kids to begin doing early coursework, work experiences, developing some understanding of all of the career opportunities that are available to them in public safety, law enforcement, detention officers, going into legal and prosecution, even thinking about careers in mental and behavioral health to do criminal justice diversion programs that help streamline our system and make it more effective. So we have some work to do on public safety, but there really are tangible action items that we can undertake to be more effective and make the system work overall. So I see some continued questions popping in about the police and public safety issues. We talked a little bit about why turnover is high. What I hear is that officers are frustrated. They want to be able to do their jobs, and without some leaders in the community supporting them, without us expanding the jail, without us making cases go to trial faster, without us addressing the system issues, they're going to continue to be frustrated. We owe it to them to do better, and I am very clear on what needs to happen next to make our community safer. And a question here about implementing public safety reforms with budgets being cut back. You know, we've just begun, actually just today, we started having some conversations internally on what is called a zero-based budgeting practice. So typically when we look at city budgets, we take what we had last year and we work from there. We either add or subtract funding. In the climate that we're in now, with the state having restructured property taxes and that changing how we levy mills here in our community, I think we need to go back to the drawing board. So in this year's budget cycle for the fiscal year we're in right now, I brought an amendment to ask the city staff and council together to undertake a zero-based budgeting exercise. And what that means is that we're going to start from $0 and we're going to build the budget up piece by piece based on the community priorities that we hear from you all the time. So at this point, I don't know that we will have a public safety budget reduction because we are beginning to look and sharpen our pencils at how we can align our budgets better with what we're hearing from voters in the community. Now, there's no doubt that the city has been significantly impacted by the state's decision to implement what is quite frankly a property tax shift and not as much property tax relief as I'd like to see. So we do have tough decisions ahead of us, but I am very confident that as we begin to sharpen our pencils and really examine all of our assumptions about budgeting, about cost allocation, we will be able to prioritize resources, and that will help us make the kind of decisions that we need to do. I don't see us scaling back on public safety resources at this time. At least that's not something that I would support. We really do have to take a system-wide approach in order to make Billings a safe community. And so that means supporting our law enforcement officers, filling those positions. It means addressing the facilities that allow us to hold people accountable. But honestly, it means getting upstream of the issue too. It means bringing together organizations in our community, churches, nonprofits, schools, everybody who is engaged in the process of making our community stronger to do real crime prevention work. We absolutely have to restore some values, we have to restore some personal accountability, and we have to bring down the number of crimes in the system. So much of the work that we need to do now on public safety might not actually have a budget impact at all. It's really about a mayor with a real vision, bringing people together to solve the problems that we know exist, focusing us with laser-like precision on making Billings the safest community in the state. We can tackle these issues, but it's going to require all of us working together, and it's not always a question of budget dollars. So when we talk about our marijuana dollars, I mentioned that we took a significant portion of them and sent them to the county. Yes, we are putting those dollars back into public safety. You may remember in 2021, the city passed a public safety mill levy, which included some of those FTE that I mentioned earlier, additional police, prosecutors, fire, code enforcement. But it also included, you'll remember, 2 mills for the purposes of substance abuse, mental health, crime prevention type programs. So we've taken the marijuana dollars, combined them with those 2 mills, and created a fund that allows us to invest in things like a short-term holding facility. It allows us to do targeted programs to reduce domestic violence in the community, which is still today the single largest category of assaults that we have in Billings, and begin working on some of those system issues. So yes, please know that we are looking at using those marijuana dollars as effectively as we can to build out the kind of infrastructure that helps make Billings a safer community. I see a question here about how do we support mental health services. What a fantastic question, because we know they're under-resourced at just about any point in the system that you would need them to be addressed. I'm really fortunate that I get to sit on the board of New Day, which is one of the mental health providers that works with both youth and adults in this community. And the staffing challenges are serious. We need to be able to attract and retain competent professionals who can serve the mental and behavioral health needs of the community. We're going to talk, I think, a lot tonight about some of the workforce challenges in the community. Billings is blessed with persistently low unemployment levels, which is great. If you want a job in this community, you can generally find one. But that means there's real strain, and nowhere is that more evident than in our mental health capacity. We have to attract more workers into that system. I think some of that, quite frankly, is about advocating with the state for mental health funding that makes sense, that serves the needs of a community as large as Billings, battling some of the many issues that we have here in this community. But a part of it also is having some interesting and exciting conversations about what we can do in workforce development and talent attraction. These are not areas where the city needs to create a new department or spend new tax dollars. These are opportunities for a mayor with a vision, person that I hope that I am, to begin bringing people together and say, listen, we cannot continue to ignore the fact that we don't have enough mental health workers, that we don't have enough physical health workers, that our infrastructure to support the well-being of the community isn't adequate. So let's get after the workforce development, the talent attraction that we need. And then sometimes the city does play a role, right? We need to think about things like affordable housing and safe streets and good schools to help attract people to the community and let them maintain their jobs here. But I want to take a moment while we're on this question of how do we support mental health services in the community, because it is a multifaceted issue to tackle. I want to talk about the proposed state mental health hospital, because it's one that I know is on a lot of people's mind. If you don't know, the state has proposed to build a 32-bed mental health facility here in this community. Its purpose, from the state's perspective, is entirely focused on the criminal justice system. It is designed to do competency evaluations so that people can go to trial, or to help people become fit to proceed to go to trial, or to provide detention opportunities for people who have been adjudicated guilty but mentally insane, or not guilty due to mental illness. So it's important that when we hear conversations about the state mental health facility proposal, that we understand it serves a criminal justice purpose, not a therapeutic service or an expansion of what we would call civil behavioral health services in the community. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't bring a real benefit to us. There are absolutely people in the jail right now who would be better off in a therapeutic environment. There are people who are waiting weeks, and weeks for competency evaluations. And there's not a good place for them to go for stabilization services if that's what they need to allow the criminal trial to proceed. I talked a little bit earlier about how any strategy for public safety depends on the overall system working more efficiently, on us getting to trial faster. And so the State Mental Health Hospital gives us potentially some resources to get people into an environment that fits the need, to do competency evaluations more quickly, to get cases to trial. But what it doesn't do, and what I hope people understand, is it doesn't give a place for the psychiatric facilities at Billings Clinic, for example, to refer to. It does not create a place for people to go to get mental illness treatment or mental health treatment. It doesn't expand any of that. It is a criminally focused facility. Important, but not an expansive mental health. It's not a part of our system overall. That facility will need somewhere between 450 to 500 employees. Most of those are nurses, psychiatric aides, and psychiatric techs. There's a variety of those positions that are mental health counselors, licensed addictions counselors, occupational therapists, all the sorts of positions that you would think of in the mental health, behavioral health space. So when we think about the strain on our mental health system that exists today, the lack of resources for both young people and adults to get the mental health resources they need, the proposition of a brand new facility in the community pulling those resources out of our infrastructure, it's a serious one. It's one that requires us to really partner with the state if this is something that we're going to do. I've spent the last few months since they began talking about this in August, asking a lot of questions and encouraging the state to come to the table as a real partner. It seems inevitable that Billings has the workforce, whether the facility is sited in Yellowstone County or Stillwater County or Bighorn County. This is where people live, and this is likely where we're going to see a workforce impact. So the city of Billings is a stakeholder in this conversation, quite frankly, anywhere in the region. And it's really important that if we're going to support the existing mental health infrastructure in the community, that we have a real strategy for how we begin to supply 500 additional people that don't currently exist today. So mental health for students and community, significant issue, potentially much more significant as we look at a mental health hospital being sited somewhere in the community. So let's go back to a few of these other questions. When we talk about public safety and mental health issues, inevitably we end up having a conversation about homelessness. What are we going to do for people in the community who are struggling to get basic needs met? It is a very real issue, and it's one that I've been fortunate to spend a little bit of time working on. I was a part of the team during COVID who helped establish the low barrier shelter and quarantine and isolation facility for people experiencing homelessness in the community. That facility was designed to both give people who didn't have a home to go to a place to recuperate if they were ill, but also to provide some low barrier services that helped get people experiencing homelessness onto a path to recovery. It operated for as long as we had COVID dollars to operate it. And the Billings Police Department, the police chief in particular, called it the gold standard of serving homelessness in the community. And I say that not to pat myself on the back, but to let you know as a voter, we know how to do this. We have incredible nonprofits in the community who know what needs to be done. Now, as you've seen in the media, some of those nonprofits in the homeless sector have been struggling under leadership that wasn't focused on solving the homelessness problem in the community. There have been some corruption issues, there have been some allegations and some charges, and those will need to get sorted out. If we can get some of our largest homeless serving organizations back on the right track, if their boards are able to steward their organizations through this, and I'm confident that they are, then we'll begin to have expanded services and facilities to meet the need that we have here in the community. Now again, I'm not one who's going to come to you and say, gosh, we need more tax dollars to solve this, or we need to create a new city department to solve this, or we need to hire new staff. These are partnerships. This is where the mayor and council come together, bring stakeholders to the table, and we align ourselves around a set of goals. But quite honestly, tackling homelessness means becoming a little bit more sophisticated about the issue. I haven't spent a lot of time in this sector, but I've spent some, enough to know that the needs of people who are homeless in our community vary quite widely. The social service organizations that work with them know that, but we as elected officials, as policymakers, we don't always approach it with the nuance that's needed. There are some people who have very serious mental health, behavioral health, or physical health issues, and they're going to need a different type of strategy that looks more like permanent supportive housing with really good wraparound services to stabilize them, to keep them off the streets. And there are other people who just fell on hard times, people who might actually be working and are struggling to access housing. We have to be able to think thoughtfully about people at every different sector of the homelessness continuum and serve their needs. And that means us as policymakers. The nonprofits know how to do this. We need to be better partners with them. For some people, that will mean centering work as a part of the solution. And that makes me really excited. Helping people find dignity in work, earn an income, take care of themselves, support themselves, that's good work. That's meaningful work to do. And we can do more of it. But the city here has an opportunity to think about things like affordable housing. Just this Monday night, we approved a little over 100 units of new affordable housing in my ward up in the Heights. It's a great project, and I'm very excited to see it come about. We know that there are long waiting lists for people trying to get housing and get off the streets or not sleeping in their cars, no longer couch surfing. So we, as a city council, can ensure that we are focused on housing supply, housing inventory, reducing regulation, encouraging development in our community at every price point and in every neighborhood so that we just don't sprawl on the edges of our community. That's part of what we can do on homelessness. And part of what we can do is bring people together with that real policy leadership to say we have to start tackling this day in and day out. What we can't do is continue to ignore it because people are frustrated, and frankly, there is no dignity for people who are suffering living on the streets. We can do better for our community, and I'm confident of that because I've seen us do it. I got to work with the people who made it happen and who did real good work. So for folks who feel like homelessness is an issue that we can't tackle, I'm actually very optimistic that we can bring people together and begin to develop some strategies to house people, to find them work, to address their issues. But I don't want to underplay the same issue that we've been talking about, which is mental health and behavioral health issues. We will need expanded treatment facilities in the community. We will need expanded resources for individuals at every income level, quite frankly, who are battling with mental health and substance abuse issues. I believe that's going to include a lot of advocacy with the state, both the Department of Health, Public Health and Human Services and the state legislature. I'm really fortunate to have good relationships with our legislators, and I know that they want to hear the policy needs of the city of Billings. So we have to be willing to be advocates for our community. The Yellowstone County represents something like 37% of the state's GDP. We send a lot of tax dollars to Helena, and we need good partnerships to make Montana's largest city thriving, safe, secure, and vibrant. So I'm ready, if elected as mayor, to begin advocating for our best interest and ensuring that the needs of this community are not overlooked when major state decisions get made. So let me take a look here at the next question. Do I think it would be beneficial to create a traffic court program and start pulling people over for speeding and dangerous driving that could also generate revenue for the city? It's a great question. Multifaceted, actually. It gets back to the question that we talked about a little bit earlier, which is what do we do with police staffing levels? We do have what's called a STEP unit, which is our strategic traffic enforcement program. Often those folks get pulled into regular patrol because we have vacancies or people who are out on leave. So we aren't always able to have our traffic enforcement units as fully staffed as we would like them to be. So in general, we have to expand the pipeline of people who are coming to be sworn officers and community service officers so that we can begin staffing some of these more strategic units that would do things like traffic enforcement. It is also the case that we have a very, very busy Billings Municipal Court. We do about 16,000 cases a year through that court. It is hands down the busiest court in the state of Montana. And so as we enforce traffic more aggressively, that certainly creates either the need for a specialized traffic court day or some managing of the docket so that those cases could get heard. What I'm really excited about is one of my colleagues on City Council has brought an initiative to ask us to look at traffic and noise issues more holistically, because we hear it all the time. It's speeding, racing, running red lights, just noise, motorcycles and loud music, things that are disruptive to the community and also present real safety issues. So over the next few weeks and months, I think you're going to see City Council start having some conversations about multiple traffic enforcement strategies, maybe even some design strategies. Do we need to reconsider some of our assumptions on how we build roads if we keep building these speedways that people are racing up and down all night long? So this is a topic that is front of mind for City Council right now, conversations that we're going to have. If you're not watching Council on Monday night, really encourage you to do so and make sure that your voice is heard, because I think that we're going to start looking at tackling this. We hear these questions all the time. Looks like we've had a few questions on DEI. Those are great questions, and I want to be clear. I love debate, discussion, and dialogue. I'm an attorney by training, so dissension, even very sharp debate is something that I think is good. I think that's how we form good public policy. When we have lots of different perspectives, lots of different worldviews that are being addressed and that are having a seat at the table, a voice in the process. I am concerned, at least what I've seen here in the community, is that DEI initiatives look a little bit more like pandering and a little bit less like real results. I want to see people from all different sectors of our community at the table because their voices are valuable and essential, not because we've developed some sort of targeted initiative that is designed really just to maybe look like we're doing something when we're really not. So I'm not a fan of the DEI initiatives that I've seen play out in the community. I don't think they've made a difference in a meaningful way. But that doesn't mean that I don't support having a wide variety of people engaged in community work, engaged in the policy making, engaged in the decision process. People need seats at the table. They need to come to those seats because of merit, because of experience, because their worldview and perspective is important, not because they're there shouldering the burden of a particular demographic. So I would say that my general stance is more voices, the better. The more debate and different perspectives, the better. But the kind of DEI label, I think, has not served our community very well. So taking a look at some of the other questions that we have been asked, I had a question posted earlier tonight about what can we do about the lack of educators in our community, and it's the same workforce question that we've been talking about all night long. Just for the point of clarity, the City of Billings doesn't oversee the school district; they have their own school board. But certainly we have a shared interest here in being able to attract and retain a workforce in multiple areas, and that includes teachers. We've been having some really good conversations with School District 2 about new legislation that allows us to do some targeted workforce housing. So there's a proposal under development right now to build some homes that are really very affordable, targeted at workforce that looks like first-year teachers, first-year police officers, first-year firefighters, right across from Castle Rock Middle School. I think it's about 30 homes or so. There's some issues to work out for sure with traffic. We know that some of those intersections there around Castle Rock Middle School are a real problem. But at the same time, there's an opportunity for the school district to focus on what it does, hire and retain teachers, and for us to come alongside them as partners as we build out our city to say, what does it take to attract and retain a workforce here in this community so that we can have teachers? Now, even though this isn't, again, under our city purview, I know there's great work going on across the state to address teacher shortages that are chronic. So if you're really concerned about educator shortages, just know that there's real meaningful, exciting teacher development work going on around the state, including a brand new teacher apprenticeship program that will be launching across the state over the next year, building up some of our rural schools and creating just a larger population of trained and licensed teachers. So this is an exciting time as we look here at workforce shortages, whether it's in the mental health space, whether it's in the education space. We have real meaningful work to do. And I get very excited when I think about the kind of community that we can build together, when I think about the opportunities that we have to really deliver on the promise. That's something that we talk about in Billings, well, for as long as I can remember. I'm born and raised here. Billings is my home. And for as long as I can remember, we've been talking about Billings as a community with so much potential. But I really believe this is our time to deliver on that potential. we have opportunities to lead, to become, frankly, the regional hub that we know we can be, that communities depend on us to be. So I'm very excited about the opportunities that are ahead of us, and what we can do if we elect people with real vision and a clear sense of where we should go as a community. So I see, please keep, if you haven't been dropping those questions into the chat, please keep doing it. Really want this to be about the things that are on your mind, about the issues that matter to you as voters. Let's see, I want to make sure I'm just going to scan through here and make sure I'm not missing anything. See some questions here about the concerns of the LGBTQ community, what we need to do to make people feel safe and heard. And I think, honestly, it's the same approach that we talked about here under that sort of DEI label. I think it's really important that we as neighbors all feel like we have a voice in the process. One of the things that I talk a lot about as I run for mayor is a local government that you can trust, a local government that is transparent, accountable, where you feel like your voice can be heard. This is the government that affects your life almost every single day. And so it's important that everybody feels like they can come to council, advocate for what they believe in, and have a real interest in developing what kind of community that we are. So for me, I don't believe, again, in heavy-handed ordinances or regulations or forcing things. I don't get on board with the sort of corporatist DEI labels that I've seen, but I do want to consistently, as a mayor, be a person who's out there in the community, talking to you, engaging people in a conversation, welcoming diverse viewpoints, even sharp debate when we need to have it to make an issue go well. There will always be conversations about how we could do better for everybody in the community. But for me, it's really about reaching out, building relationships, listening to people, asking questions, not having government come in and impose ordinances, regulations, or heavy-handed approaches that try to force something. We're neighbors. We have to live together. And so we need to walk in the idea of building relationships, coming together to solve problems, and being comfortable disagreeing. That's a healthy part of the process. So I would hope to approach it that way rather than stepping up and creating more government bureaucracy to regulate things. Why does the city grant so many licenses to bars, casinos, and car washes and not enough family-friendly facilities? What a great question. Thank you for asking that. We don't. That's not something that we regulate per se. What we do is zone things. And people have a right to use and develop their own property in the way they see fit. We get told all the time that there are different sort of financial metrics for where people want to site car washes or banks. These are opportunistic buildings, so they want to be on every corner in case in that split second you decide to duck in and get your car washed or run in and do some banking. So there's some business decisions that happen out there that result in us having a lot of car washes, casinos, bars, those sorts of things. And I know it frustrates people. My approach as mayor is not one of regulation or reduction, it's one of growth and expansion. I don't want to start hamstringing private property development. I don't want to start using our zoning code to drive particular behavior. We need to zone for health and safety, for rational use of our land inside the city. What I'd rather do is go out and attract new businesses. I think we absolutely need family-friendly activities here in this community. That's twofold. I want to see people come in, bring those investments, bring those restaurants, retail, entertainment options. Let's make sure that we're out there talking to people, either here in the community who want to build those small businesses up, or out there recruiting people to come make that investment in Billings, not just for the 110,000 people who live here, but for the thousands more that represent our sort of trade and tourism area, where we know we will attract people from outside of the community to come recreate here in Billings. At the same time, we have huge assets right here in our own community that we need to program better. That means looking at some of our cultural assets. It means looking at our parks and recreation facilities and ensuring we are activating those spaces as often as we can, so that it's not just that we have great parks, but that inside of those great parks, there's something going on every weekend, so that we feel like we have things to do. There's a lot of that happening right now. One of the things I think we struggle with in this community is awareness and communication. I hear a lot, I'm sure you do too, that we find out about things after they happen. And we've got to find a way to tell our story of recreating and entertaining in our community a little bit better. But I also know that we have parks assets, cultural assets, entertainment venues that we can program more often and more fully. Some of those are directly under the city's control, and some of them are public-private partnerships. But as we activate our spaces more, we create some of those family-friendly opportunities without having to take a regulatory approach. So we've got about 15 minutes left tonight. Thank you all for these questions and for hanging with me as we work through this. Just as a reminder, ballots are coming out this week, so you will start to have the chance to have your voice heard, and please do vote. It's just so important that we have good voter turnout, that you are educated and informed and are voting for people who reflect your values in these elections, because we really do have a lot of work to do. And I'm really excited about the potential that we have if we elect good people. So the next question is, what do I think is the biggest problem facing Billings right now, and what should we do to fix it? Oh, that's a whopper. I still believe public safety is our #1 issue, and I believe that for 2 reasons. It's a significant issue. There is just simply a lot going on that we don't want in our community. But also, it's the most fundamental role of government from my perspective. If we're going to do anything right, if we're going to really do anything at a level of excellence as your local government, it ought to be making Billings the safest community in the state. So yes, we have what is, in my opinion, unacceptable levels of both violent crime and property crime. We have lots of drug use going on. We have growing gang violence. We have trends that are not what we want for our community. But also, if city council, the mayor, and city government are going to focus on anything, it should be public safety. And that means across the spectrum. It doesn't just mean arresting people. It absolutely means holding people accountable. But it also means preventing crime before it happens. It means diverting people with behavioral health issues into a system that addresses their need and serves public safety. And it means working with the state on the back end so that as people exit incarceration, when they've paid their dues to society, we're reducing recidivism. We're not just seeing people turned loose and falling back into a life of crime. So these are the things that we need to work across the spectrum to ensure that we have a safe, healthy, and vibrant community. And I think when we do that, we start to see all the other things that we want to see. When we have contractors who aren't having their job sites robbed, when people aren't battling mental illness or substance abuse and are able to work, we start to see that growth of new businesses, new investment, family-friendly activities, amenities. We start to grow the community in the direction we want to go. But the very first and most important thing that we have to do as a local government is keep it safe. So we have a lot of work to do, but that will be, for me, if elected as your mayor, my #1 priority. The next question is, what is my position on the local sales tax option without solving issues with property taxes? So I will tell you that in general, I'm not a fan of a local option tax. I see it as an end run around the larger issue of this tax structure in the state of Montana, which I believe wholeheartedly needs reform. Right now, we have either the first or second most complicated funding strategy for education in the country. And with the bills passed in the last legislative session, we're now in the top 5 for most complicated property tax structure in the country. It's not working. It's not working for the state. It's certainly not working for the state's largest city. And as the state's largest city, I believe the mayor has a critical voice in advocating in the legislature for a tax system that makes more sense. Now, what does that look like? I think that's a conversation we need to have. Does it look like, if we think about taxing as a 3-legged stool, does it mean we eliminate property tax and have a statewide sales tax? Or does it mean that we just lower the rates of income tax and property tax altogether, but streamline them rather than having these incredibly complicated systems and funding formulas that exist now? These things are open for debate. But what I don't want to do is simply try to end run by adding a local option tax on top of everything that we have already. I still believe, and we have some work to do here, but I still believe that we don't have a revenue problem right now. We have a prioritization problem. We need to focus on first things first and doing the kinds of things that attract more growth and more development to the community so that we can expand our tax base rather than just putting more taxes on your back. For me, a local option sales tax avoids a problem rather than than actually solving it. And while one community may not be able to convince the state to change its system, Billings might be able to. We're the biggest city in the state, and we should act like it. We should be leaders on complicated topics like that, particularly when the systems that we have are so disadvantageous to us. So that would be my hope. We'll be heading into a legislative session here in 2027, and we'll need to be at the table. What happened in the last session with respect to property taxes really hurt us as a community. As you know, Billings has a cap on the number of mills that we can levy for anything, and the state blew right through that. They kind of blew a hole right in our local charter. I think that was the wrong choice. There were better ways to allow the state to reduce property tax overall and leave the will of the Billings voter intact. The mill levy cap works. It forces real hard decisions, but it saved this community $120 million in taxes over the last 30 years. It's a significant limitation on the growth of government, and it forces us as elected officials to have conversations with you. When there's something that we propose or something that we think the community needs, we go to you, the voters, and ask you if you want to tax yourself to do it. Those are good conversations to have. They're healthy conversations to have. The alternative is to see perpetual year-over-year tax increases based on some formula that the state has that's related to growth. That's what we've seen in the western part of the state, and their property taxes have skyrocketed, and their governments have grown right along with it. What we have here in Billings works, and the state did some real damage to it. So in the 2027 session, we're going to need to be at the table for real tax reform. And I am not a proponent of just finding a solution to end run the system that we have now. Let's see. Oh, a question to repeat the Yellowstone County GDP statement. Yeah, I think it's about 37% of the GDP of the state comes right here out of Yellowstone County. It might be 34, so don't quote me exactly on that, but it's somewhere in there. We are a major engine of economic growth in the state of Montana. And what's really unique about Billings, for those of us who've lived here all of our lives, is that we tend to be the backbone of most of the industries across the state. So whether you're in any of our traditional industries, mining, agriculture, logging, Billings is where you come to do business. This is where the professional and financial services are. These are where you find your bankers and your architects and your engineers and all of the people who make every industrial sector across the state work. We should be really proud of that. So as we see industries grow and change and expand, Billings plays a fundamental role in that all across the state. It's why I think this community deserves a mayor who apologizes for nothing, who goes boldly to our other communities, our other counties, our stakeholders, our partners, and into Helena and says it's important that the city of Billings do well because we help the state do well. We have nothing to apologize for. We should be very bold in our advocacy for the best interest of this community, and I'm excited to take that challenge on if elected as your next mayor. So as we're coming to the end here, I just want to share a few thoughts with you in closing. If you have one or two more questions that we haven't gotten to, drop them in the chat. If there's anything we have missed tonight, I will do my best to respond to them in writing. I'm so grateful to you for being on here tonight. We really do have some exciting choices ahead of us, but this is the time for serious leadership because we have some real challenges. If we're going to capture the potential of our community, we need to get to work. We need to do real solutions that show you the return on investment that build the kind of community that we want to have. So I appreciate your engagement. We will have ballots mailing out. They're due November 4th, so there's still time to ask questions of candidates, to ask them of myself, and to get educated. But I really do encourage you to get involved and vote. And come to city council meetings, participate in them. We have enormous potential ahead of us. For the last 4 years, I've been working on some of the most important and most challenging issues in the community, whether that means keeping our budget under control, bringing more transparency to our operations, or tackling bite by bite how we make Billings a safer community. I have had the opportunity to learn and to deliver some real results in my ward of the Heights, and I'd love to do that for the city of Billings. We have a chance to change the way we do things around here, to tackle some of the challenging issues and be bold advocates for our future, relentlessly optimistic about what we can accomplish together. Thank you for hopping on tonight. If you have more questions, go to votejenniferowen.com. You can learn more about me and our campaign there, and you can reach out with contact on the contact form for any questions. If I have just a few more minutes, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But if not, thank you for your engagement. Please vote. Tell your friends to vote. Encourage people to be involved. We have a big election ahead of us. This is important choices, and I'm grateful for your time this evening. Thank you.